I love you.
What is going on, everybody? This is Mike Hughes, and you're listening to Mike on the Mic and everything Chicago sports related podcast. Whether you're watching this on the Shy Kid on TikTok and Instagram, or you're watching this on YouTube, I appreciate you guys tuning in. We got some breaking news tonight. I was at work when this was all going down, but I got to report it live as it was occurring. Shout out to Bleacher Nation, by the way. Normally, John Heyman, Jeff Passan, or somebody along those lines breaks it down. But Bleacher Nation was on their P's and Q's tonight. I got to give them credit where credit is due because they were the ones that broke the news almost instantly. Obviously, Bob Nightingale was one of those guys, too, that had this pretty known. Shota Imanaga is going to likely be a Chicago Cub by this Thursday. I mean, right now we don't know what's happening. We still have to get the impending physical. The Chicago Cubs are going to do their due diligence to make sure that he is fully healthy before they ink a contract. But from what we understand right now throughout the league and what we understand from other sources in the media, other MLB insiders, is that the annual AV is right now for Shota Imanaga is going to be around $15 million per year. So that could look something like 5 over 90, maybe something like 105 over 6, something along those lines. But I love it. I love it so much. The 30-year-old lefty is an absolute monster, is an absolute unit. What he was for Team Japan when they won a championship this year in Team USA or against Team USA was absolutely phenomenal. What him, Shohei Ohtani, and Yamamoto were able to do together, I mean, that was just a juggernaut that everybody was afraid to see. So it was really cool to see this happen for the Chicago Cubs. It was desperately needed with CubsCon coming this weekend. I promise you, if they didn't bring in a guy like Shota, we were going to go into CubsCon, and when Jed Hoyer walked across that stage and they did the little ceremony, he was going to get booed. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I mean, it's still, at this moment, we have so much work that still needs to be done. So I'm not going to sit up here and say that, the job's finished. You know what I mean? We still want Bellinger back. There's still conversations about Rhys Hoskins, Matt Chapman, other relievers that are still there. We could still use another quality starter while we wait for guys like Cade Horton, Ben Brown, Hayden Wesneski. Obviously, Jordan Wicks had a great second half of the season, but is he fully ready to be a top 3 pitcher in this organization right now? There's a lot of questions, not a lot of answers. It's better safe to be sorry always. You can never have enough pitchers. But with that being said, I love this move for the Chicago Cubs. An absolute monster in obviously winning with Team Japan in the championship in the World Baseball Classic, but with his team throughout 2 teams in 2023, he had a 2.66 ERA. Absolute phenom, man. Absolute phenom what we're seeing right here. Now, is he Shohei Ohtani? Is he Yamamoto? No. But he's his own. He's really into his own, and it's an interesting conversation. My guy Lance Brosdowski at the Marquee Network really did an amazing breakdown. I mean, Lance is an absolute monster when it comes to breaking down pitching mechanics and breaking down what guys are good at. So definitely check that video out if you haven't already. But the main thing that you could look at for a guy like Shota is what he brings to the table, the pitching arsenal that he has. I mean, it's just absolutely phenomenal. You're looking at a guy who, with a fastball, sweeper, splitter, cutter, curves, and sinker, can take you out in so many different ways. And I think that's the big one. That's the big one right there. And I see a lot of people in the comments right now are curious to the contract. For that, again, I'm going to continue to reiterate this throughout the live because there are people chiming in at different times. Right now, we don't know what the contract is going to look like. The annual AAV for the contract is rumored to be around $15 million per year. So could be, if it's a 4 to 6 year deal, you're looking at anything from $85 million to $115 million. That's really where I'm at with it right now. We won't know until Thursday if he passes the physical. I'm sure that within the next 24 to 48 hours, it will leak what the contract would look like or what it is going to look like. But it's a great deal. It's a great deal compared to guys like Yamamoto making over 300 and guys like Ohtani making 700, which is no disrespect to them. Obviously they are, especially Ohtani, is at that place where you can demand anything at this point. You can demand ownership of the fucking team, and you'll probably get it. Part of my language, but Yamamoto for 300 was a little bit too much for my liking. I believe, what was it, 325, if I'm not mistaken. It's a little much for me, especially with all the opt-outs he had. If this contract doesn't go over 150, I think we're in a really good place. Especially for what you're getting out of him. Obviously, you're looking at a fastball, slider, and a splitter as his three main pitches. 54% fastball, sweeper at 16%, and a splitter at 12%. Then you have your cutter at 7%, your curve at 6%, and then your sinker at 3%. But the stuff is disgusting. The stuff is nasty. The stuff is something that I think you can look at, and moving forward, you can see this as a potential number one on several different teams throughout the MLB. You look at teams like the Los Angeles Angels, you look at teams like the Guardians or the Washington Nationals, the Oakland A's, maybe even the New York Mets, and you could say this guy's the number one immediately. So, I love that for the organization. We have a bona fide number two. A lot of people are curious to see, what that could potentially look like, next to Justin Steele. And I think that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty in the game right here, is Jed Hoyer brought in somebody who immediately can coexist with a guy like Justin Steele, but be so different and so similar at the same time. The 1-2 punch that these two are going to have is going to be phenomenal. While guys like Cade Horton, Ben Brown, Hayden Wesneski, and the list goes on of other great prospects throughout this organization, the Javier Assads, even Jordan Wicks. No disrespect to Jordan Wicks, but what he was in the second half of that season, you don't know. You don't know what he's going to be in the long haul. So to make sure that you locked up a guy you can have solidified, be that 1-2 punch, you obviously already have Tyone, you have Hendricks, we have Wicks. It's a solid rotation from what I'm seeing so far. Now, can it get better? Sure. It can always get better. We can always get better every single day. You can never have too much pitching. But I'm excited about this, man. I'm excited about this for so many different reasons. Somebody said, I hate to admit it, but he's been good. Yeah, man, he's an absolute monster. A lot of people are curious about the contract. Again, we're going to continue to reiterate that. We are not sure until he takes his physical and passes it. I'm sure it'll leak before that by Jeff Passan or Bob Nightingale or somebody, John Heyman or somebody. But, man, it's just so exciting. It's so exciting. And, by the way, for anybody tuning into this, if anybody's going to be at CubsCon this weekend, definitely hit me up. Definitely mention it in the comments. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be reporting, interviewing fans, but potentially interviewing guys like Lance Brozdowski, James Triantos, Brennan Davis, and so many others that we've already had on the podcast before. So it's going to be a lot of fun to really just reunite with those guys, catch up, and to see you guys as well. So if you guys are there, if you guys see me, definitely yell my name. Hey, Mike, whatever, the Shy Kid, whatever you guys want to yell. Don't be a stranger, please. Like it's no problem whatsoever. I still got so many Packer fans in the live, man. I did it to myself. I can't lie. But yeah, man, if you guys are there, definitely let me know. We could definitely make videos together. We could definitely make a bunch of fan interviews talking about, obviously, Shota, talking about Bellinger, Hoskins, Matt Chapman, anybody else in free agency, what we're looking forward to. We're going to play a couple games, this or that, a couple Cubs trivia questions that I'm excited about. It's going to be exciting, though, man. It's going to be a lot of fun. Doing a real quick breakdown, obviously, about Shota. I almost said Yamamoto. I've been so locked in on so many different Japanese pitchers all year long. Imanaga is going to be an absolute monster, though, man. I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be cool. It's going to be. Jack said in the comments, "We did it, bang!" It's gonna be fun, man. Imanaga is going to be something that I think is another pillar. We've talked about it before. You need the championship caliber pillars. You got the guys, obviously, like Jan Gomes, who won a championship with the Nationals. You have a guy like Dansby Swanson, who won already with the Atlanta Braves. You bring in a Cody Bellinger. You know what I mean? A Cody Bellinger who's been to several World Series in multiple years, who's won an MVP, multiple Gold Gloves, a Silver Slugger, and then obviously winning a World Series with the Dodgers. It's so important. And then obviously you bring in Imanaga, who's going to be so pivotal to this rotation, who doesn't have that championship caliber experience outside of Kyle Hendricks, who's obviously on the back end of his career with the Chicago Cubs. So to have two champions in that rotation now, it's a lot of fun. Jack also said the AAV is going to be $15 million. Chills. Yeah, I mean, really, that's really what it comes down to. If he turns out to be exactly what we want him to be, $15 million per year, you're looking at a 5-year deal worth $85 million, or maybe a 6-year deal worth 105 to 110. It's a steal. It truly is a steal, especially considering what the guarantees might be. Now, one thing I do think, though, that he will have locked into that contract is the opt out. I think there will be an opt out in case he succeeds, pardon me, what he could potentially be worth. Maybe in year 2, year 3, he has that opt out. I wouldn't put it past him. It would make a lot of sense. Yamamoto even has an opt out after like year 3 or 4. Shohei's really the only one that doesn't have those, but it's definitely going to be interesting to see what could potentially happen. Ivan, what's happening, brother? Twan, how we feeling? Yeah, man, we're just kicking it, talking about all of the big news for the Chicago Cubs. I've heard he has 10K per 9. Yeah, I mean, he's an absolute monster. He is an absolute monster. And like we talked about before, there are so many different ways you can look at this deal. And I don't think any of them are negative. You can talk about what he's going to be and the transition that he's going to make into Major League Baseball. There's definitely going to be a transition. But we're not going to sit up here and act like he wasn't fucking up. Pardon my language. He wasn't fucking up Paul Goldschmidt throughout the World Baseball Classic Championship Series. So we definitely have to recognize that he's had success against Major League talent before. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. It's a weird deal. I saw Jim Bowman and John Heyman. Yeah, it's definitely a weird deal, Jack. I completely agree with you. It's one of those deals that you kind of look at and question why. And again, that is why I think you're seeing the contract that you're seeing potentially with the AAV, is because it's either going to be a shorter term deal or it's going to have a lot of opt outs. And that's really where I'm at with it. I could see a 5-6 year deal with an opt out after year 2 or 3, but it's going to be interesting. It really is. Twan said, you think he has a 1 or a 2? Is it Steele's job to lose? Well, here's the thing. Here's what I've spoken about very highly. First, we won't know until we know. We have to see him at a full 162 game season, maybe 20 to 25 to 30 starts. That's what you're really looking forward to going into this year. This isn't a guy that we're going to wean into this. This is a guy who's ready to win now. He's 30 years old. He has championship pedigree, a 2.66 ERA with his 2 combined teams in 2023 in Japan. He's been a monster. So, I'm expecting him to be a number 2 for this team moving forward. Now, obviously, Justin Steele is still going to be the ace of this team, but you have to understand that, like I said earlier, this isn't a guy who is a scrub. This isn't a guy who, you are looking at as an unproven individual. This is a guy who I believe you look at the New York Mets, you look at the Washington Nationals, the Cleveland Guardians, potentially if they get rid of Shane Bieber, or even let's go to the South Side to the Chicago White Sox. Imanaga could start and be the ace on those teams tomorrow. So will he be the ace on the Chicago Cubs? No. Obviously, that is Justin Steele's job. There is no if, ands, or buts about it. You finished top 5 of the NL race last year, NL Cy Young race last year, and you have the season that you had being an all-star. He is certainly, undoubtedly, the number 1 on this roster. But to have that 1-2 combo with a guy like Jordan Wicks, with Tyone in year 2, who Tyone had a phenomenal second half of last year, and a Kyle Hendricks who was pretty legit last year. I'm not going to lie, coming back from injury, what was it, in late May, if I'm not mistaken. He came back early June. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. Jack also said he strikes out Paul Goldschmidt in the final game in the World Baseball Classic, and that's what I mean. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't a guy who you're gonna look at and say, "Hey, man, like, I don't know if he's gonna transition into the MLB and be the same." He looks the same. He looks great. Now, there are going to be different varieties of what we're going to see. He obviously is a top of the shelf type of guy with the fastball, and the fastball is dominantly what he is going to be throwing the majority of the time, on top of the sweeper and obviously the splitter. But with that, though, you have to understand it and break down how things are going to change. Pitchers are totally different in the MLB versus in international countries. So what we're seeing from hitters is a team that typically can struggle, I guess you could say at times. I'm not trying to put anybody in a box, but typically you see international teams, they struggle with the high velocity coming up high on the shelf. In the majors, there's guys like Aaron Judge who are going to knock that out of the park 10 times out of 10. You know what I mean? So there's definitely going to be that transition. There's definitely going to be a difference between him in Japan and versus him in the MLB. And we kind of saw that in against Team USA. He was kind of switching up a little bit of stuff, but we're going to see that at a more consistent rate. But we are going to get off live on Facebook and YouTube right now. If you guys haven't hit that follow button already, definitely smack it for us as we continue as much as possible to talk about Chicago Cubs baseball. We're going to be starting a new pod soon. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to be breaking that down. Obviously, we're going to be at CubsCon this weekend, interviewing the fans, interviewing everybody else. But this is an amazing signing for the Chicago Cubs. Hopefully, before we get out of here, we have to address that this isn't enough. I will say Jed Hoyer did save himself from getting completely and utterly booed at the ceremony on Friday, but definitely still more work to do. You have to bring back Cody Bellinger. It still seems like the Cubs are the favorite. I'm still in on a guy like Rhys Hoskins, maybe even a Matt Chapman. Depends what you want to see out of a guy like Christopher Morel. I believe Christopher Morel can still play third base every day. I see that potentially happening while guys like BJ Murray and James Triantos continue to develop. But with that being said, I appreciate you guys for listening. I appreciate you guys for being here tonight. That was our breakdown. We will be going live tomorrow morning and tomorrow afternoon as well. Until then, stay beautiful, stay lovely, and go Cubs, baby. I love you.